In Spanish, the words desde, hace, and the phrase desde hace, using these two words together, offer three different ways to talk about the time. Let's explore what desde hace and desde hace mean. Now, the first one, desde, means since. It translates like since in English. And you see this a lot on drinks bottles and on packaging for food and things like that. When companies want to say like since 1935, desde 1935. So desde just means since. We'd use it in the same way as in English. Since and then the date. Desde octubre, since October, me duele la pierna, my leg's been hurting. Hace translates as ago, and the way we use this is a bit different to how we use it in English. Now, in English, I'd say the time, then I'd say ago. In Spanish, I'd say hace, then I'd say the time. So the structure you need to use is this. Time ago equals hace and then the time. For example, a year ago, hace un año. 2 years ago, hace 2 años. 3 years ago, hace 3 años. You get the idea. 2 days ago, hace 2 días. 1 hour ago, hace una hora. 10 minutes ago, hace 10 minutos. So I'm just using hace in exactly the same way as ago, but I'm swapping it around. It's going before the time rather than after the time. A long time ago, hace mucho tiempo. With both of these, desde and with hace, sometimes we'd use the perfect tense in English to say like, I have not seen you, or we have not seen each other for a long time. Hace mucho que no nos vemos. Hace mucho que no nos vemos. Notice that in Spanish, I'm just using the present tense. So when I use these time phrases, hace and desde, and we'll talk about desde hace in a minute, I can use the present tense in Spanish, but it will often translate as the perfect tense in English. Inca Kola hace bebidas gaseosas. Desde 1935, Inca Kola have been making drinks since 1935, 1935. Again, I'm saying Inca Kola have been making drinks. In Spanish, just Inca Kola make drinks since 1935. So if you're only working with the present tense at the moment in Spanish, using these phrases, you can still express things which in English would require the perfect tense. And nothing does that better than desde hace. So let's take a look at this one. Now, desde hace basically translates as for. So it's quite a lot. It's 2 words in Spanish. It's just for a period of time. For example, juego al fútbol desde hace 10 años. I have been playing football for 10 years. Notice how in Spanish, juego al fútbol. I play football desde hace 10 años, 10 years. Desde hace is kind of converting my present tense in Spanish into the perfect tense in English. If I were to say, soy vegano desde hace 10 años. Literally, I am vegan for 10 years. I'm using soy, I'm using the present tense. But in English, I translate this as, I have been vegan for 10 years. So whenever I'm using desde hace, it's not just translating as for a period of time, it's also whatever goes before it is going from the present tense in Spanish into the perfect tense in English, which is really useful if you don't yet know how to use the perfect tense, because you can express these ideas just using the present. In fact, when you do know how to use the perfect tense, it's easy to get this wrong, because lots of people think, oh, how do I say I have been vegan? He sido vegano. No, you don't actually need to do that. You're overcomplicating it if you do that. It sounds better to say, soy vegano desde hace 10 años. Soy profesor desde hace 5 años. I have been a teacher for 5 years. Literally, I am teacher desde hace 5 years. If you want to say, I've lived in Spain for 3 years. I live in Spain desde hace 5 years, or 3 years, or whatever I said. If you've moved, you want to say, I've lived here for 3 years. Vivo aquí desde hace 3 años. I live here desde hace 3 years. I have lived here for 3 years. If I want to use just hace, then I'd need to use the past tense for that. Like, I moved here, me mudé aquí hace 3 años, 3 years ago. Ago, 3 years. So hace always going before the time frame. Let's take a look at some more examples. We've got vivo en Cuba desde hace un año. Vivo en Cuba desde hace un año. Have a think how you translate that into English. Literally, I live in Cuba for 1 year. So we change this to I have lived. I've lived in Cuba for a year. Me mudé. So mudarse is the verb to move like move house, move country, different to mover. Mover is just to move. Mudarse, reflexive verb. Me mudé a Cuba hace un año. I moved, in the preterite tense, I moved to Cuba ago, 1 year, 1 year ago. 1 year ago I moved to Cuba. Me mudé a Cuba hace un año. Número 3. Vivo en Cuba desde el 2024. Vivo en Cuba desde 2024. I live in Cuba since 2024, since 2024. We've always got to say in Spanish 2024. No, we can't say 2024. You have to say 2024, 2025. But here I've got two options. I could also say he vivido en Cuba. It doesn't sound too bad in Spanish this time to say he vivido, but it works fine just to use the present tense. Vivo en Cuba desde 2024, desde el año pasado. Now as a bonus structure, I'm going to give you this one. Llevo un año aquí. Llevo un año aquí, or I could say llevo viviendo aquí un año. If I use llevar is normally the verb to take, but llevar with a gerund, these words ending in ando or yendo, the kind of equivalent of in English, is kind of like I have been doing this for a certain period of time. In this sort of case, with the going back to I have been a teacher for 5 years, soy profesor desde hace 5 años, I could say llevo 5 años como profesor. Literally, I take 5 years as a teacher. Or llevo enseñando español 5 años. Llevar is also like carry. It's almost like I carry teaching Spanish for 5 years. Llevo enseñando español 5 años. So llevar, you need to conjugate llevar, then you use those ando or yendo, those gerund or present continuous endings, and that gives you this kind of structure, which, like I say, it doesn't really translate literally. So with Cuba, I could say llevo viviendo en Cuba un año, llevo un año viviendo en Cuba. Lots of different ways of expressing time and how long you've been doing things, how long things have been going on for, or when things started. Now to practice a bit more, let's go from English into Spanish. I haven't eaten since yesterday. Have a think, how would you say that? No como desde ayer. Or I could also say no he comido or no he comido nada desde ayer. But it works well with the present tense. No como desde ayer. I don't eat since yesterday. Works fine. Número 2. I have been married for 7 years. Now, I have been, I just need to say I am. So I've got two options, soy or estoy. In this case, it's going to be estoy. Estoy casado desde hace 7 años. Me casé hace 7 años. Estoy casado desde el 2018. Número 3. I started learning Spanish 6 months ago. Now, I do need the preterite for this. I started, comencé or empecé a plus the verb to learn, which is aprender. Comencé a aprender or empecé a aprender español 6 months ago. So it's going to be ago, 6 months. Hace 6 meses.